Hello and welcome to an exclusive hour-long programme with me, Alex Belfield, talking to one of my favourite people who's drop-dead beautiful. Jackie Collins, how are you?
I'm good, Alex. How are you?
Oh, I'm delicious and delighted to be talking to you. If it wasn't for you, I'd know nothing about ooh, ooh, ooh.
And what does ooh, 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 ooh mean?
Well, we mustn't be graphic.
You gotta pick up Cosmopolitan this month. I've got a whole a series of lust and love in it and how to be graphic.
I don't want to go that far, to be honest with you. Jackie, you're tremendous, and you never fail to release a book that isn't popular, that isn't amazing, and doesn't defy gravity with some of the things you describe. I've been trying them, not possible.
Yes, they're all possible. Believe me, I've tried them all out before I write them. You know what? I love what I do. I have a passion for what I do. And bringing back Lucky Santangelo in Drop Dead Beautiful was so much fun for me because she's such a popular character. And I thought, you know, what is Lucky going to do now? Well, what she does in Drop Dead Beautiful is she has great married sex, which we don't hear a lot about, do we?
Well, the two things don't go together, do they, really?
Yes, they do. You see, that's where you're wrong. Well, I've got all these comedians on television. They go, oh, you know, he's married, he'll never have sex again, that kind of thing. And women know that that's not true. And it's not the women that back off, it's the men that sit in front of the television and, you know, have too many beers and say, don't come near me, I'm watching the football.
My producer, Tarquin, has asked me to ask you, can you not use the word sex? Can you refer to it as ooh, 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 being as this is a family show?
Oh, okay, ooh, ooh, ooh.
Is that all right?
Yeah.
Jackie, you've had an amazing life and a tremendous career and such a successful life. How do you think it has happened that you've succeeded so brilliantly when so many fail?
I think that, you know, a lot of people would like to be a writer. I wanted to be a writer since I was like 6 or 7 years old. And I used to write little poems at school and sell them to my friends. And I knew it was what I wanted to do. I had a passion for it. I read a lot when I was a kid growing up. I was reading Enid Blyton avidly, and I think she inspired me. She was such a wonderful writer. She gave you visual pictures. And that's what I want to give my readers out there, visual pictures. And I'm a school dropout. And I never really learned anything in school except composition, which I came top in. But I feel that I'm a street writer, that I write the way people speak. And I was on a radio show the other day with Jackie Stewart, and he turned to me and he said, you know, I'm slightly dyslexic. He said, and I've always enjoyed reading your books. He said, in fact, I think I've read all of them. He said, because they're easy reading. And that's what I like to give people. I want them to get on a plane and lose themselves in one of my books and perhaps learn a little bit about a different lifestyle, because I've lived an incredible lifestyle and I write about the people I observe. But I want to give them these great visual images too, and fast visual images. I'm not a literary writer. I'm a storyteller.
I have to tell you a story. I went to see my Auntie Marge yesterday, who I gave the book to, and she said to me, she said, I like it, but the problem is it's too small a print, so I can't read it in bed. I thought, well, thank God for that.
Well, here's the thing, you know, they do a large print edition.
Do they
Yeah, they
really?
really do. Yeah, it's great. And they do it on a lot of authors, actually. There's actually, you know, there's the Doubleday Book Club. There's always a large print book club, too. So as a Christmas present for Auntie, you get her a membership to the large print book club.
What is amazing about my auntie is she's very conservative and she's very prim and proper. But she reads your books as if they are some fairy tale for a Disney cartoon. It's amazing, isn't it?
You'd be amazed at some of my fans, and I'm one of the few writers that has generational fans. Like girls of 15 love my books, girls of 20 are crazy about them, and then I have the older readers too. And the other day, a friend of mine, she has a sister in New York who happens to be an undertaker, and she was laying out this old guy who was about 95, and on his chest was a copy of Rockstar. No, actually, you know where I am?
Go on.
I'm in Glasgow.
Well, what are you doing there?
I'm in Glasgow. I'm doing an event tonight where I'm going to speak, and I'm going to do a question and answer session. And I love traveling around when I come to England. On Saturday, I'm going to South Africa. The following week, I'm coming back to London for 1 day. And then I'm flying back to LA to write my new book, which is called Married Lovers.
You really are living the American dream. You're just a young, humble girl somewhere in Britain, a nobody, and the next minute you're flying around the world and you're the star across the Atlantic. They love you in LA.
You know, it took a lot of hard work to get there. I really wanted to be a writer. Everybody discouraged me. They said, you're a school dropout, you got to go to college, you got to have degrees. I followed my dream, and I really believe to anybody listening out there, especially girls, follow your dream, because you can do it. If anybody can do it, I can. I mean, I did it, and I was a school dropout at 15. So, I've had 25 books, number one all across the world, several movies, 10 movies made of my books, actually. Several of them I've produced. And I think you have to have a dream and you have to pursue it.
You couldn't lend me a fiver, could you?
No. One of the secrets of being successful is never lend money, because that way you lose friends. And I don't want to lose you as a friend, Alex.
Well, you mustn't. And the thing is, you never lend a book either, because you never get it back, do you?
Well, exactly. Never lend a CD, they never give it back, and never lend a DVD.
I'll tell you why you're successful, and let me be so bold as to put my finger on it.
Okay.
It's because you're personable, and you allow the people to think that they know you, and you talk about stuff honestly, and we think we kind of know you very well. That's so smart on your part, because it endears you to so many people, doesn't it?
Well, that's nice to hear, but I try to be myself. I've never put on airs and graces. And I remember traveling across America with my kids when they were little, and I was on the Oprah show in Chicago. And I came back to the hotel, and one of my daughters looked at me and she said, "Mummy?" I said, "Yes." She said, "Who's Jackie Collins? Because I don't think I like her very much." She'd watched me on the show, and all of a sudden I was Jackie Collins instead of Mummy.
What's that Oprah Winfrey like, then?
Oprah is terrific. I've known her for, ever, because I used to do the show when she was just starting off, and she would come to Hollywood, and I had a book called Hollywood Wives, and we would get in a limo and drive up and down Rodeo Drive, and I would point out all the shops to her, and we'd talk about Hollywood and the way the women were there. So I really knew her at the beginning of her great ascent to power, and of now, of course, she's very famous, and probably one of the most famous women in America, and I couldn't get on her show now because her books that she talks about in her book club are very literate and very serious, But the last time I was on her show, I had that book called Rockstar, and I was on with Gene Simmons of Kiss fame. And Gene was busy showing her his amazing tongue, and she was busy reading out the most salacious passages of Rockstar. So I guess things have changed since then.
Does that bother you when someone becomes righteous and also the most wealthy female in the entire world, and then suddenly you're not invited on the programme? Does that bother you?
No, it doesn't bother me at all. I think she's done what is very sensible for her to do. She's turned herself into an icon, and I can only admire her. I think she's great. I'd love to be on the show again, but I know that she doesn't promote my kind of books anymore, and that's fine with me.
And it's a fascinating, mucky read, and that's my favourite type of read, Jackie.
You see, you and I differ on that, because I would say it's, can I use the S word? It's ooh, ooh, ooh.
I use that word with affection. It's a northern word that I use as kind of,
yes.
ooh, ooh.
Ooh, 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 yeah. Well, you don't like sex, and I don't like mucky, so we'll settle on ooh, ooh, ooh.
The problem is, love, I can't get sex. That's the trouble. Let's talk about Jackie Collins as the child. What were you like, and at what point did you suddenly discover that you'd got all this in you?
Oh, you sound like Catherine Tate. What were you like? I love Catherine Tate. I'm obsessed with Catherine Tate. I think she's the most talented woman on British television.
Do you really?
Oh, yeah, she's so great.
I don't know whether that's a compliment or not, that you think I sound like her.
Oh, well, no, the way that, what you were saying, because, are you bothered? Are you bothered?
Exactly. So what were you like as a child then?
I was a wild one. I mean, I love writing wild ones now because Max, Lucky's daughter in Drop Dead Beautiful, is a wild one, and I guess Lucky was a wild one when she was young. But I was a total wild one. We lived in a basement apartment near Baker Street, and we lived in this kind of very nice block of flats. But I would be out the window every night since I was 13. I would put bolsters in my bed and I would go. I mean, I'd be at jazz clubs and discotheques and running around, and I just was uncontrollable, but I knew that I was going to be a writer. I knew that's what I wanted to do, and I had to find out about life, and I did. I found out about life at a very early age, and I was very precocious for my age. And I guess if it had been today, I would have, ended up on drugs and, completely a washout. Although I don't think so, because I was a bit street smart too, because I read so much. I read Harold Robbins and I read Mickey Spillane, so I knew what I was doing.
So you were never, ever even tempted by drugs?
Never, never. And, my first husband was, unfortunately, involved with, he was a depressive, he was a depression. I mean, he had depressions, and he was put on drugs by his psychiatrist, and eventually they killed him. And so my second husband ran fantastic nightclubs all over the world, and he had Tramp in London. And so I saw more drugs going on with the rock stars and the movie stars and the sports stars. And, we had Tramp in Los Angeles too. And it never tempted me. No, I just like to kind of observe and watch. And I've seen it do terrible things to people. I've seen it ruin careers. I've seen it kill people. I've seen it people lose their looks because of it, lose their money, lose everything, their self-respect. Drugs are not good. Any kids out there who think it's cool to do drugs, forget about it. And, it screws you up totally.
When we look at the front of the papers today, we see all kinds of celebrities involved in drugs. Are there more drugs around show business now, or is it just that we know more about it?
We know more about it. They've always been around. I remember when I was 15 and I was going out with a boy that was he was a man actually, and he was a reporter for a music paper. And, I'm 15. I'm kind of innocent. I go in a cab with people like Dizzy Gillespie and great jazz musicians to a gig, and they're all smoking grass, way back. And I'm thinking, this isn't for me. So I was a smart kid, luckily. Not that there's anything wrong with, smoking a joint once in a while if you're at home and not driving.
Oh, I don't know about that. I didn't even try Quiche Lorraine till I was in my mid-30s. I don't think so. So we're 15 years old. We're going out the window and going clubbing. I mean,
Yes.
You were in some danger, weren't you? It's not a great way for a 15-year-old to be leading their
I
life.
can remember being chased around a park by some guy one night, and I had to hide behind a tree until it got light and I could escape. Oh, I've had lots of adventures. One day I'll write my autobiography and people will go, what? I've kept my private life somewhat private.
Well, we want to know about that, you see, because that's fascinating that you write all these books. We can see you in them, but obviously these are characters. So will we ever get to read that, or are you just going to keep writing these books with characters?
I'm probably going to keep writing books with characters, but I think one day I might write an autobiography. It would be fun to do. But I think it's kind of you know what happens with people? They write an autobiography and then they're not able to write books after that. That's what happens with movie stars. Haven't you noticed? They have a ghost-written autobiography and then they think they're a writer. Or true writers just keep on telling stories.
I got to be honest with you, Jackie. I'm sat here today and I've got 400 interviews of people with books out. I don't think one of them has read their own book for a start.
Oh.
Secondly, they're all boring. They're all under 20. How can you write an autobiography if you've only had about 4 years to live?
Well, I know. And, I know it's an afternoon show, so I can't say what I was going to say.
Oh, go ahead.
But I know there's one certain celebrity who writes very intimately about her husband's anatomy. Mm-hmm. And I'm thinking, is that really interesting to the general public?
Well, I'm curious now to know who it is. Thank you so much for sparing the hour to talk to me, because you must have better people to talk to than me.
I don't have anybody better to talk to than you.
Well, hello.
Hello.
I think we'd get on really well, you know.
We would, yeah.
I think your next husband could be me.
You're a married man, aren't you?
Well, I am, but where do I apply? Let's not let that get in the way of it.
You better get your divorce first.
So far we're up to the point then where you're going out clubbing and you're doing all kinds of naughty things. Did you honestly believe that your parents knew nothing about this?
Well, they didn't, because I really was very clever about it. But they did eventually find out. Actually, I played truant from school every day, and finally, I used to forge these notes. Dear headmistress, Jackie's got a really bad strep throat, and it keeps on reoccurring. So sorry about this, but she can't come to school for the next 3 weeks. Till one day I came home and my mother said, how was school today? And I said, oh, school was great. Really? And then she produced all these forged notes.
You see, there's nothing worse than someone who's disruptive and smart. They're worse than the idiots in a class, aren't they? Because you can work the teachers and you can get around things, and you're smart enough to know how to get out of all these different lessons.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, because as I talk to you, I'm recalling that sometimes when I was forced to go to school, we had like a changing room downstairs, which was also conveniently in a basement, and I would go out that window too. So I would register in the morning so they'd think I was there, and then I'd be off. I used to go to the movies. That's what I loved to do. Ooh. I used to pretend my father was in the CIA and I was really American. And then I'd take off and I'd go and see all these movies in Leicester Square.
All right. What was your first favourite movie then?
Oh, my mother took me to see a movie when I was like 2. And it's the most horrible memory. And maybe it's why I became a writer. I don't know what it was called. It was something with Bob Hope in, which you would think would be a comedy. And she probably thought it was okay to take a 2-year-old to see it. But in this movie, there was a bookcase. And the bookcase opened, and people were taken into the bookcase and lost forever. I used to have nightmares about this movie, and I've never forgotten it.
So you used to go to the cinema, and did you go alone, or were there several of you in this party?
Oh, I had an American friend at school who was a couple of years older than me, and she was a really bad influence, and so we would go off together.
You lived the life I want to live. I'm just too sad to even have the audacity to even think of climbing out a window. I'm also too large. I'm 22 stone. It wouldn't happen.
Really?
Oh, terrible.
I think you should go on a diet.
Well, I want to talk to you about that as well, and surgery and things like that, because you're so amazing looking. And I believe you're over 25 now, from what I've heard.
I'm over 25. Can you believe that?
I'd heard rumour. I mean, have you ever considered any surgery or these gastric bypasses or anything?
You know, I'm extremely lucky because I had the best-looking parents. I mean, I had a fantastic-looking father, Joan Collins. He was a theatrical agent, and he was great-looking. And I had this beautiful, ethereal, blonde mother. So I guess I inherited their genes because they looked great up until the day they passed on. And I live in Hollywood. I see these women. I see really beautiful actresses, and suddenly they go in and they have something done and they look good, but they don't look like themselves anymore. And I would be too frightened not to look like myself because I like the way I look, you know. I mean, I'm not perfect by any means, but I get up in the morning and I can put on makeup and look okay. And that suits me just fine.
Well, I think you're fabulous. So we're up to the part in your life where you're turning 15 and you're going out the window, going clubbing and things like that. And then you were blossoming into a woman, is that right?
Oh, honey, I blossomed at 13.
I suspect you're not joking.
And this is a family show, and I'm not joking, and I'm not going there. I never talk about my life or my money. I just write about other people's.
You see, this is your mind. I didn't ask you about or I would have said it.
Oh, it was on your mind. You did. You went,
right.
Oh.
It was on my mind. You're absolutely right.
I know these things.
You mentioned your dad earlier, and with him working in show business, did you get to meet a lot of people who were very either famous or important in those days? Did that influence you, do you think?
Oh, yeah. I don't think it influenced me, but it gave me an insight into famous people because I think I might have mentioned this before, but our house was always filled with famous people. I mean, there were, writers and artists and jugglers and comics and movie stars. And so I met very famous people at a very young age, and I was never impressed with them. My father's partner for a while was Sir Lou Grade, before he was Sir Lou Grade. He was, and his wife was my mother's best friend. So I would be, hiding under the trolley. They would have card parties every Friday night. And I would hide under the trolley that was wheeled in with all the food on, and I would listen to all these men talk. Very interesting. That's why I consider myself one of the boys, because I can really get into a man's headset.
Well, you're doing a good job with mine today. You're being very tolerant. When was the first moment that you realised that you were on the right path to becoming the person you wanted to be and the author that you wanted to be?
Well, I think when I wrote my first book, The World is Full of Married Men, and it was published and it became a huge instant success because there was an MP who was in the closet at the time who took a half page in one of the Sunday papers and said, "This is the most disgusting book I've ever read." And there were no four-letter words in it because I'd taken out all the four-letter words at the behest of my publisher who said, "Oh, you've got to take out the four-letter words, otherwise you'll be banned in Australia and Boston." Well, I took them all out. I was banned in Australia and Boston anyway. And this book was attacked by male critics who, I turned the double standard on its head. So they didn't like that. And then I thought, this is what I really want to do. So The World is Full of Married Men was my first book, followed instantly by The Stud. And I wrote The Stud about, my husband, as I told you, had discotheques. And a guy used to run them for him. And every girl wanted this guy. I mean, he was the hot guy. So I wrote a book called The Stud, which was really about him, a real-life person. That's when I realized that I should take characters that I've seen and observed and write about their lives, because the secret of writing successful books is writing about what you know, not what you don't know.
I presume as well there's nothing better than someone slagging your book off who's of some importance or in some senior position to raise the profile of the book to sell even more copies.
Exactly, and usually the people who slag my books off have never read them. You'll get some guy sitting behind a desk in Fleet Street, some grizzled old guy, and he's furious. He looks at my picture, which he usually reviews, and then he'll go, how can she do it? And I'm going to give this book a terrible review, and then they'll review me and not the book.
A question I've always wanted to ask you is, how did the feminists react to you, the likes of Germaine Greer, these people who really were the antithesis of what you were? You were celebrating femininity and being a woman and shouting it from the rooftops, weren't you?
Sure, but I was still turning the double standard on its head. I mean, my women were always strong from my first book. For instance, David, the hero in The World is Full of Married Men, screws around on his wife for 9 years, and she finally does it back to him, and he goes to his beautiful girlfriend and he says, "Sweetheart, I'm going to marry you. I'm going to divorce my wife. I'm going to marry you." And she just gives him an arch look and she says, "Well, I'm not going to marry you. I just like sleeping with married men." And so it was always a question of my women were strong. I remember being on a show in New York once, and Gloria Steinem was in the green room. And my publicist told me after that she turned to her publicist as I was being interviewed, and she said, "This is a very interesting woman. She takes with one hand and gives with the other."
That's a great quote.
Yeah.
We're going to be back next with our remaining moments. Before we go, I just want to ask you about getting that first book. How easy was it to get that first deal?
It wasn't easy because nobody ever encouraged me. Everybody said I couldn't do it. So I wrote many, many, many books, and I would get like 50 pages in, and then I would abandon them and go on to write another book because I figured I was never going to get published anyway. So what the hell? I had so many good ideas, and I never finished a book. And when I met my first husband, he was the first person to encourage me. He read, what I had of The World is Full of Married Men, and he said, "This is really a fabulous story. You have got to finish it." And I said, "What are you talking about? I've got another great idea." He said, No. You have to finish it. And he is the one that put me on the path to finishing a book. And then I sent it to a publisher. It was accepted almost instantly. And I've never looked back.
We're back with Jackie Collins on your favourite local radio station. We're here with our remaining moments. We've got a ton of things to get through. The obvious question I want to ask you, Jackie, is your opinion on being an author and a writer. Presumably it's a God-given skill. You can't be trained to write beautifully like you can.
Well, I'm not a literary writer, as I said before. I'm a storyteller. And if it was 100 years ago, I'd be sitting around the campfire saying, "Let me tell you a story." Because you're a born storyteller. A lot of people write one book. You can get a one-off. Somebody will write a book and it'll be number one and it'll be on the bestseller list for, 36 weeks or something. They never have a second book. This is my 25th book, Drop Dead Beautiful, and I'm really proud of the fact that I've managed to achieve that kind of career, being a school dropout and all, and being self-educated in a way. It's a very difficult profession because you're by yourself and you have to do it. You create something from nothing. And that's why I really don't have much respect for these people who shove their name on a book and have a ghostwriter do it, because the ghostwriter is doing all the work. I would never dream of having anybody even research my books for me. I do everything myself, and I create every character myself, and I don't like being edited either, because if I'm going to fail, I want to fail on my mistakes, not on somebody else's. And you don't get people saying, "Oh, I think I'll be a brain surgeon tomorrow. Hey, can you do that operation for me?" So I have no respect for these people who say they're writers and they're not. It's a very difficult and lonely profession, but it's the most wonderful thing in the world.
Jackie, I just did an interview yesterday with a guy who I quoted something out of the book. I think he was surprised that I'd read it to begin with.
Yes.
And he knew nothing about it, and I had to actually prove that it was in the book. He had no knowledge of what I was talking about.
I love it.
Isn't that marvellous?
Yes.
Now,
Okay.
You clearly have a wonderful life now and a very blessed life, but you have been through some difficult times, haven't you?
I mean, I lost my husband to cancer. I lost my fiancé to cancer. I nursed both men through terminal illnesses. Both knew they were dying, and it's, I would like to say to people listening out there, if anybody is going through this, if they are a caretaker to a terminally ill person, just celebrate their lives when they go. Don't mourn their deaths, because that's what I've managed to do, and it really works. You feel they're out there, that they're supporting you, that they're watching over you, and don't crumble.
I don't know how you feel about it, Jackie. I've lost a couple of important people recently, and you never really get over it. You just learn to deal with it better, don't you?
You learn to deal with death because you never know what's going to happen. You can walk out of the studio today and get knocked down by a bus. You never know what's going to happen. And so you have to, this is really corny, but you have to live every day as well as you can live it. And I'm a hovering Buddhist, so I kind of believe in the Buddhist religion very much. The fact that you live your life as best you can and don't hurt people.
What goes around comes around.
Absolutely.
This book's set in Vegas in part, and I know you launched the book in Vegas. It's one of my favourite places. Is it a favourite of yours?
It is. I love Las Vegas. Harrah's Hotel gave me this fantastic casino tour across America, which I've just completed. And it was so much fun because I met all the readers and they would come to the casinos, and hundreds of them, and I would sign books and do a question and answer session. And it was so nice to meet the people, and it was so much fun because I had my own slot machines. I didn't make any money from them because the hotels own them, but they had the book on the slot machines and my picture, and they were Lucky Sant'Angelo slot machines. People were playing them and winning money. It was great.
I can give you one word that sums up why I love Las Vegas.
Yes.
Buffets.
Ooh, no wonder you're 22 stone.
Best in the world, I'm telling you. I'm so fat, I stood on the talking scales the other day, Jackie, and it said 1 at a time, please. Vegas is amazing and the shows are great and all of that. Do you get much time to actually enjoy yourself? Because you're writing such a lot and you're touring such a lot.
I do. My favourite way to relax is to have, like a box of Maltesers and TiVo, which you call Sky Plus, and lie down on my bed for a whole day and just watch like Prison Break and Californication and Brothers and Sisters and Desperate Housewives and just totally do nothing all day except that. And that's incredibly relaxing.
Where's your favourite place to be in the world?
I guess on the beach in Los Angeles at sunset.
You see, now, that would be my idea of a nightmare because there might be a pap ready to photograph me. Do you not worry about matters like that?
Absolutely not. The people who are pursued by the paparazzi encourage it in a way, and they create kind of scandal in their life. And if you don't want that, you don't have to have it. You can avoid it. You can just not be that kind of person, not go to the clubs, not do that.
It seems to me celebrity isn't as exciting as it used to be. There's too many people hand-wringing and moaning and whinging about it. After all, it's the greatest privilege in the world, isn't it? Yet people don't seem to be able to handle it like they used to.
Well, they should handle it like Brad and Angelina because they handle it beautifully. They just ignore it. Haven't you noticed? They just sail right through it. Unless they're being physically attacked, which obviously happens sometimes, and then their bodyguards have to spring into action. But I notice Angelina taking her child to school every day in New York, and there's crowds of people, and she just sails right through it. She doesn't look miserable. She doesn't look happy. She just sails through it as though it's not happening, and that's the only way to handle it.
How harassed are you by the public? Does that bother you, or do you not mind if I come up to you asking for an autograph? Not at all.
I love being told how much they love my books. It's great. In fact, I was in a hotel yesterday and I was standing next to Ricky Gervais, who I love. I'm a big fan, and I wanted to say to him, I think you're brilliant. But then I thought, no, people are always saying that to me all the time, and although I like it, I don't really want to say it to somebody else.
You could do it to me if you like.
I think you're brilliant.
Well, I think you're fabulous. Drop Dead Beautiful is the brand new book. It's out now on Simon & Schuster. It's Jackie Collins' new release. It's going gangbusters and people really love it. Chapter 4, good Lord.
Oh, yeah, Chapter 4 is a good one.
I thought I had a good imagination till I read Chapter 4. All I'm saying, ladies and gentlemen, read Chapter 4. It will change your life forever.
I've been getting emails on my website where women are saying, oh, my husband came home and I thrust Chapter 4 at him and he's a changed man.
At least it's only Chapter 4 she's thrusting at him.
Exactly. Wait till she gets to Irma and the Gardener. Shades of Lady Chatterley for the 2000s.
Does it get any easier, or does it become more difficult to think of these brilliant ideas, these flashes of inspiration that you get in the books?
You know, the moment I sit down, my characters take me on a trip. I don't control them, they control me. And currently I'm writing this new character, Cameron Paradise. And she's so interesting to write. She's 24 and she's so bright and she's so gorgeous, yet she has a real streak of morals. But she's also a player. So I love writing her.
And what I love about you as well, you do it all longhand, which is amazing.
I know. I love that. I love that. I want to see my writing at the end of the day.
Can I not buy you a $3.99 laptop or something?
I have a laptop. I'm on my laptop all the time with iTunes and iPhoto and email. But writing to me is the actual physical act of writing.
Imagine how much you get for those original papers on eBay if you auction them off.
2,000 pages is Drop Dead Beautiful. 2,000 handwritten pages.
Send me a couple, I'll make a fortune. Jackie Collins, thank you so much for coming on the programme.
Thank you. It was so great, Alex. I love talking to you.
Drop Dead Beautiful is the new book. It's in your stores now. Thanks, Jackie.
Bye.